Hi, welcome. I'm Charlie. I'm at My Messy Fingers, and today I'm going to be playing with a new collection that Scrap and Create sent to me, and it is Ciao Bella's Timeless Moments. It is a lovely, lovely collection. Lots of beautiful graphics and colors and all kinds of cutouts. Just a bunch of stuff. And I am playing with the patterns pad 12 by 12, the paper pad that's 12 by 12, and then the A1 pad that's 12 by 12. So let's get this set up and going. So with this collection, I am using what is called a mid green, and this is a beautiful green. If you're ever wanting to wrap an album, it is so neutral that it just fits a lot of hues that you see where you've got green in the paper, and it allows them to pop. I found this at CARDSTOCK.com, and their cardstock does not have that white core. I've cut many a cardstock that had a white core and you end up having to ink it. I didn't like it. So they've got good quality paper, and that's what I'm going to be playing with today. So let's get on to the album making itself. So I am playing with, this is a 1 7/8 spine, and this album is going to be 9 by 9. So we're going to have a 9 by 9 album with a 1 7/8 of a spine. Now, when I make my albums, I connect them, if you will, using Tyvek. It is a shipping envelope, and it goes on the outside of my album so that when the album is flexing on the hinge, then the chipboard is flexing on the Tyvek, which has a very high tear value. I'm very impressed with it. And then when I wrap the album, it's going on this side of the Tyvek, and then it allows the cardstock to actually kind of float or move, if you will, over the Tyvek, which helps to minimize cracks and tears because your cardstock's not running against this edge. So that is the reason I use this. Now, I also use a spacer. I do sell them on my Etsy site, but I want a 1/4 inch hinge, so I am going to use the spacer to ensure that that's exactly what I got. Now, when I cut my Tyvek, other piece, I cut it at 2 inches wide by 7 7/8 for this album. This album's 9 inches. But I don't want the Tyvek to have to go all the way to the end. So this is at 2 inches by 7 7/8, and then I put it on the scoreboard in this direction, and I scored at a 1/2 inch, and then I scored at 1 7/8, and that's what makes my little gusset here, if you will, for my hinge. And then that is what my spacer is going to lie up against. And then I am going to come in here and put my pieces on like so. And I will make sure that everything's lined up down here when I get ready to go, but this is kind of what it's going to look like. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to get started. I'm going to pull out the centerpiece first. Now I want my spacer in here. This set comes with 4 spacers of different sizes. Now I'm going to line this corner right here up with one of my green grids here on this, and I'm using this green grid to make sure that I'm straight. I need to move that up just a little bit because I don't want it to go end to end. And then I'm just going to bump that right up to that. Ta-da! Now while the spacer's in there, I'm going to pull this one out. And then I'm going to realign this on my grid, match up to the grid, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to lay this down against. I will turn this over, and then I will remove that second layer of tape. And then I will burnish. Okay, let us get this one set up. And once again, put my spacer in the center. And then we're going to take and run it right up next to it. I'm going to leave my spacer. I'm going to line this back up down here across the bottom. And then set that in place. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and remove the tape. And then we're going to burnish. Ta-da! So this is done. We're all even. Now we're going to wrap it. So on my paper that I'm using 2 pieces. And the first measurement I'm going to give you is the height. These are 9 by 9, so I want to have a 1-inch wrap. So I've got 9 inches this way. I'm not giving you the width yet because I might have to trim it down, but what I'm doing is I am giving myself a 3/8 of an inch seam, and I'm going to match these up. Let's get these out of here. Then I'm going to come right up on top of that and just follow my tape line all the way up. Now, this is where, all right, so I want my seam in the center of my spine. That way the pressure on the seam is equal from both sides of the album. I don't want to see my seam anywhere near my hinge, so I want this in the center. I also don't want my seam here on the front and on the back because I think it takes away from the appearance of the front of an album when you're staring at a seam at the top. So it's going to go in the middle. I've got way too much paper here on my ends. I am going to trim down. I want to make sure I'm trimming them. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm going to trim it down to 1 inch. So I'm cutting a 1/2 inch off that side. And then I'm going to cut, it looks like a 1/2 inch off both ends. So let me put that on my trimmer. I could leave it. I know someone's saying, why don't you just leave it? Well, I could, but it also creates an out of balance for me personally that when I go to miter my corners, that my corners are off. So it's just a personal preference. So I'm trimming it off, and I've got now even all the way around. I have an inch all the way around so that everything's even when it all comes together. We're going to run a 1/2 inch tape around the perimeter on the green cardstock, and then we're going to take 3/8 and run it on the inside of the perimeter on the album. But we have to address the back because this is what's going to go up against the cardstock, and we need to get it down and secure. So the first thing I do is I'm going to run 1/2 inch tape along each of the edges where the chipboard is, just to give some additional security to keeping that Tyvek down and in place. All right, and then I am going to go to the end and I'm going to run 1/4 inch tape. I'm going to get in the middle, and then in the middle of each of those sections so that we have some good tape coverage. It doesn't need any more than this, but I wouldn't put any less because you want to ensure that it's going to stay down and help keep that cardstock from doing a bubble, you know, where you've seen some projects where they didn't secure the cardstock or their paper down and you could just see the little bubble, the air pockets. So I like to make sure I've got plenty of tape. Okay. And let's give a good burnish going here. All right. So then here I am going to finish putting the tape on the chipboard. So I'm going to run 3/8 of an inch tape to the outside. I am not putting tape in here at all. That will be taken care of and addressed here in a little bit. Let me turn this. More. All right, now that I have that done, let's give this all a really good burnish. Oh, I can hear the air coming out, especially up here. All right, let's fold this up, put it out of the way for the moment. 1/2 inch tape is the next. Now you can do this in bits and pieces if you want. I like to run one long continuous strip. And then this last end right here. Now I'm using 65-pound weight in the mid-green color plan. But when it comes to my pages that the signatures will be mounted onto, I will be using 100-pound weight. I like the sturdiness of it. It allows those pages to hold their shape better because it's not a 65-pound weight that's easy and flexible. All right, so we're going to center this as best as we can. All right, I'm going to make sure I've got my inch. I got a little bit more than an inch there, so I'm just going to give it just a gentle push that way. Okay, and then what do I got here? I have an inch and I have an inch. All right, so I've got it spaced the way I want it, and the first part I'm going to do is remove the tape that's on this back side of the spine. So I'm going to firmly plant my hand here, because like I said, I've already got it centered. I don't want it sliding. And I'm just going to come in here, pull the tape off, and lay it down. Now, when I laid it down, I gave a gentle tug because this Tyvek is so flexible. You don't want this. You don't want this smudging up. So you're going to be doing a real gentle but firm pull to make sure that the Tyvek stays open, that your hinge here stays open. Okay, so I'm going to just firm but gentle, and I'm going to lay it down. And then I'm going to do the same here. You see how that just slid when I put my hand on it? We don't want that happening prematurely, and we don't want it happening when we go to put this, lay this side down. Okay, so once again, a gentle but firm, make sure this stays open, and then lay it down. Burnish. Okay, now this, but first we have to miter our corners. So I'm going to grab my mitering tool. It's so much better when you've got a sharp blade. Last album I made, I was making several swipes at that corner. Okay, ooh, I'm so sorry. That just hurt my teeth. Ah. All right, so we've got our corners mitered. So I'm going to start here on an end. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of peel back these two here so the tape's not stuck under what we're going to be folding over. Turn those corners in, and then I'm going to repeat down here at this end. Just fold it back a little bit. Take these off. Kind of lost control of that. All right, let's go ahead and pull these off. We're going to go ahead and get the longest side put down. this big piece pulled off. Turn this around. Okay, now we're going to again work the paper, pull it forward. Start in the center. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is I want this paper pushed down into our hinge here. I don't like it sitting up here because, in my opinion, it does not give me good corners. So I'm just going to very gently press this down. The tape that's running on this piece will stick to the Tyvek. And while I'm at this, I am also putting more pressure here so that I can identify this edge to my chipboard. It will come in play here in a little bit. I'm going to turn this over. Get this down. Push that in there. All right, so when we're done, we have nice crisp corners on our album. All right, next thing is going to be the spine cover, and that's where we're going to mount our pages to. So I'm using, this is 65-pound weight, but what will go on top of it is 100-pound weight. So this piece right here is a hidden hinge. I'm trying to adapt and use it a little bit more often. So if this works right, these two should be right in the center of my 1/8 inch spine. Okay, I'll make it work. All right, so this particular piece, its overall width, so get ready, here are your measurements. The overall width on this is 5 5/8 by 8 7/8. So 5 5/8 by 8 7/8. Then you're going to come in and you're going to score this at 1 1/2. You're going to score it at 2, 2 1/2, 3 1/8, 3 5/8, and then 4 1/8. So if I did this right, if I didn't, I'll have to fix it in the next video, but let's see if I did this right. All right, so the two score marks where you have a 1/2 inch on each side, you're going to bring those up, pinch them, that becomes your peak. And this 5/8 that we built in here with our score becomes your valley. Pinch the next two 1/2 inch measurements, and then that will be our spine piece. And I'm going to center these in there. So what I want to see on each side of these, my personal preference, I want to see, I'm going to mark this. I want to see a 5/8. That's right there. I want to see a 5/8 piece on each side of it, so that when I center this, I should be centering that 5/8 right in my hinge. So when I put this down here, and that's because I want 5/8 between each of my pages so that there's room for the buildup of the signatures. So I'm making little tick marks at 5/8 coming in from each edge at 5/8, and then that's what I'm going to line up here in my hinge that I've created right here. All right, so you can either use tape or glue to glue or tape your peaks, the underside of your peaks, so that they're nice and flat when you're done. I'm going to use 3/8 inch tape. I feel like I have a little bit more control when I've got tape than when I've got glue. Okay, so when that's pinched together, it will bring these two pieces here together. And then I want to put tape again here on one side of this 1/2 inch peak. All right. I'm used to doing this a different way, so this just, for me, this is a lot of work and a lot of explaining, and that's just fine. I want to make sure I don't lose you is my concern. All right, so I have taken the 2 1/2 inch score marks. I've brought them together here at the base so that I've now created a peak. Make sense? It's the only way I can explain it. I've watched this being made several times, and it just depends upon who's explaining it, how they're explaining it, whether you get it or not. All right, now we have a 5/8 of an inch valley, and then we have 2 1/2 inch scores. We're going to pinch those together again, and we're going to tape them. And that's going to create the other peak for our hinge. Okay. And then I'm going to push them this way. Okay, there's our hidden hinge. All right. So now I'm going to run tape here on the back side. And I get my big roll so that I'm not wasting a whole lot on the little. Now I'm going to have more than enough, more than I need. Let's do it this way because there's no tape on that other end. Come here. And I'll just trim it off. I got myself a nice little wrinkle going on right there. Okay. So we've got this done. I'm going to give it a good burnish. And then I'm going to take that tape off. Cutting the fuzzies off there. So when I take the tape off, I am going to be looking to see that my pencil marks are sitting roughly in the center of my hinge. Okay. Now I'm going to just do one side for now. I'm not going to take all this tape off until I have this where I want it. So this is going to be shorter than, so I'm going to line it up down here, and I'm going to sneak around here. Here's my hinge. I'm going to make sure that that fell in the center of it, and I have a dead blasted bubble here. So hold on just a minute. There we go. So my hinge is way over here and my mark is right here. I'm not happy with how this laid. I like my other one better. Okay, let's see if I can get this up off of here. I know someone out there is saying, oh, she's just doing it all the wrong way. Well, I probably am. So I want that pencil mark here in my gusset. And then I want this pencil mark here in this gusset. All right, I'm a little bit happier with that. Well, at least you're learning. You know, I make mistakes. I don't try to cover them up. I don't care. This is live. So you'll learn from my mistakes. All right, now I'm just going to lay this down gently. Make sure that I got a good even. All right, now I have all this cardstock that is in my hinge, and now I'm going to burnish it with the emphasis on identifying this inside line on the, there we go. Okay, we did it. Now I have 5/8, 5/8, and 5/8 so that there's even space between each of the pages. These I don't care about, they're going to get covered up. But these I do care about. All right, let's put our pages on. I have mine pre-cut, and you are going to cut 2 pieces that are going to be 8 3/4 wide. I need to make a pretend page here. Perfect. Okay, 8 3/4 wide by 8 7/8. So the height of this page needs to match the height of your spine piece. So 8 3/4 inches wide, 8 7/8 tall. Your next piece, we are going to make a pocket page out of this. Your next piece is going to measure 8 3/4 inches wide, but now it's going to measure 9 7/8 because we need 1/2 inch to come around, and this page is going to mount, and we're going to make a pocket page. Okay? Now I pre-cut my corners so that when we make the slide, the card that's going to come in and out, that it's not bumping into this edge. So let's get these put together. I'm going to add it here to the page it's going to mount on. Okay, so this is going to mount on like this. But when we slide this in here, we need to connect this to this. So you can go ahead and either run your tape or run your glue on both sides, or you can run your tape in here. Be careful if you do it that way, because these two could end up closing it off. So it is better that you put your tape here on your hinge. And I'm going to use just a 1/4 inch strip on both sides, because we want both sides closed. And I would be a bit hesitant to use glue, because you don't want glue spreading upward into the pocket. All right, I'm going to peel this off, but I need to, I've got tape overhang here, so I'm just going to roll it back with my finger. And then I'm going to match up to that corner, follow the edge, and land. You know, I need to buy stock and undo. I just have this thing about things lining up right. I'm not perfect, but I like to have them line up, especially when they're so visible. And I see I'm going to have to put this on my big trimmer here in a minute. Because one piece is a little bit longer than the other. Not sure what's going on here. I want that level. Interesting. Okay, now I'm going to end up trimming. Oh, I can't because that's a seam. Okay, so I think no, I need to trim this. See how I've got an 1/8 hanging out here? Just a second, I'm just gonna run over to my big trimmer. I mismeasured. Now I'm looking in here to make sure that the corners I cut at an angle are here on the top, and then this will go on the bottom. You know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to bevel those corners so this sits in here a little bit easier. Okay. Okay, now let's see if I run into the same problem putting this together. So I put them on this instead of this time, hoping that maybe I have a little bit more control over putting them down and putting them together. Okay, so let's go ahead and there we go, that way a lot easier. Now my beveled corner is up. Okay, there we go. All right, our album is done. I apologize for my stumbling errors, but I don't make these hinges that often, so I need to give myself some grace. But here we go, we're ready to go. So the next video will be on making this all look really pretty. So until then, bye-bye.